Good morning. I've got a surprise for you today. I'm gonna try to wait till some people come on. Um, it's so like cold outside, but then like I got the heat on blast in the car because I don't play with cold, and so now I'm hot in the car. Okay. Let me show you how beautiful these are. Look at them. Don't they look so pretty? Don't they look pretty? Look at that. These are the 2019 Eclipse guides. Aren't they nice? They look so pretty. Can you see them? They look so pretty. Look at that. Aren't they nice? So, if you ordered your printed copy, this is what I really want to show you. Hold on. Look at her. So much stress getting these printed, but what I'm most excited about is how I got the bleed perfect on this. I knew that was going to happen, but that's okay. You see that? This is what I was trying to get. I had to like work some Photoshop magic to get that bleed so that there wasn't like a gap between this little branch and the edge of the page. Isn't that nice? Look at it, guys. Oh my god. I'm so the bomb, guys. Like, I don't even know where I came from. Why am I so amazingly talented? I'm so excited. And these have like a bunch of empty journal pages. I'm a dot grid person, so, you know, I don't know if y'all can see that. These have a dot grid on them. It's a lot of journal pages in here. And then I've also added the nice little at a glance here in the back. And then, of course, that. So that's what I'm doing this morning. I'm taking a break from my no coffee break because my body wants coffee. So I'm about to get some coffee. But in the meantime, I want to talk about aspects today. Yesterday, I did a really good video and I did the dummy and did not save it immediately after it was over. So maybe I might have to make a blog post or like redo the video on YouTube because it was really, 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 really good. I talked about how you find which planet is the most important planet in your chart. I talked about tracking the moon. I talked about the logic behind the sidereal zodiac. I just really was giving you my best yesterday, and I'm really disappointed that I didn't save it because it was golden. And so it might be gone forever, but luckily it's in my brain, so it's not gone forever. So I want to talk about aspects today. We got a lot of them coming up. Let me see here on my little shiggity-doo calendar. Do you have your shiggity-doo calendar? You can pull your shiggity-doo calendar up. Well, you're probably on your phone, so you can't pull it up right now. I changed the colors on my calendar. Hold on, I'm about to show y'all. Right? So I think they were like orange and something before. I made them a little bit more soft and easy. So I think like the seafoam green is the moon stuff, and the sky cerulean blue, that's what we're gonna call it, is the aspects. So let's talk about aspects. What are aspects? I feel like that is probably the hardest part of astrology is aspects. What the flip mode squad is an aspect, right? That's what we're trying to figure out. Let me put my car in drive and not act like I don't have nowhere to be. Right, what is an aspect? Do you know? Do you know what an aspect is? An aspect means to see, right? So I'm walking down the street and I look across the street and I see you. Or you're walking behind me. You can see me, but I can't see you, right? These are all very useful things to understand about aspects. So an aspect is a relationship between two planetary bodies or celestial bodies. It's a relationship, a conversation, an interaction. Aspects are really easy to understand when you remember that I have the car on Hades, and so I'm roasting to a crisp here. When you remember that planets are people first, and I see that language starting to spread on Twitter a little bit. I just love like watching my ideas like shape modern astrological thinking. That's why I gotta write my book, because all these people think they came up with this stuff originally, and it didn't. They heard it here first. So, right. If you recognize that planets are people first, aspects make a lot of sense, right? If the sun is of the many people, it could be your father, right? And Mars, in this case, is you, the young boy, with a fiery get up and go situation, right? Let's say dad is sun in Leo and he's domineering. Because I said so, I'm the boss. As long as you under my roof, you gonna follow my rules and do what I say, right? Ain't no talking back to dad. He's the next closest thing to God, right? This is talking about like a daytime chart, sun in Leo, you know, super fiery, hot. Dad is on boss status. He's influential in the home. He's influential out in the world. You know, he's used to folks doing what he says, right? But then here you are, Mars in Aquarius, right? So there we have an opposition. We're talking about aspects. That opposition is like, yeah, dad, you may be the boss out in the world, but you're not the boss of me. And guess who's going at it? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all the time, right? Because the fact of the matter is, he is your father, and he is the boss of you. But Mars in Aquarius says that you were born with an innate awareness of your personal sovereignty, that a person may have a position of authority over you out in the world, but they can never be the final arbiter of who you are, right? So, right. So that's the opposition. But let's go back, right? That was just to explain to you how planets are people. So let's go back. Let's start. Inherent in any conjunction is a story. Any conjunction, any aspect is a story. Conjunctions start all aspect stories. A conjunction is when two planets or celestial bodies are together. Now there's two types of conjunctions. There's a bodily conjunction or a partile conjunction, and that means that two planets are not only in the same sign, they are occupying the same degree. Visually, this looks like the planets are on top of each other, right? Then there is a bi-sign conjunction. And in general, for me, these are pretty much the same, with the exception of the moon. The moon is probably the only caveat I'd say for that. And there's caveats for other planets, but I'm just leaving it at that. So the bi-sign conjunction means two planets in the same sign, which implies that they are under the command of the same planet. Let's say you are Sun and Mercury in, I'm trying to pick a sign I don't always talk about. You are Sun and Mercury in Aries, okay? Right. So there are several things implied here. One is that in the grand scheme of the dance between the Sun and Mercury, depending on which side of the Sun it's on, if Mercury is earlier in degree or later in degree, right? If Mercury is retrograde or direct, depends, right? In the grand scheme of things, we know that Mercury is either, if Mercury is direct and it's behind the Sun, same sign, but less in degree than the sun, then we know that Mercury is about to overtake the sun, right? And this is part of Mercury and the sun stance. So it's a specific phasal relationship. Now, for the other planets, it's much straightforward. Let's say Sun and Mars in Aries, right? What we're talking about here is something called a synodic cycle. A synodic cycle is the special dance that any two planets do specifically with each other. So Sun and Mercury have a very special relationship because Mercury is never more than 45 degrees away from the sun. So you're never, ever, ever going to have a Sun trine Mercury. You're never, ever going to have a Sun opposite Mercury, Sun square Mercury. That is impossible in your natal chart because the Sun and Mercury are never more than 45 degrees apart. And a square is 90 degrees. A trine is 120 degrees. A sextile is 60 degrees, right? So the conjunction is the beginning of a story, right? That's the one thing that's happening, that's implied by that phasal relationship, the beginning of a new synodic cycle. Then, a conjunction is any planets that are in the same sign. So you could have Sun, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, all in Aries. Those planets are all conjunct. And what is implied there, and I talked a little bit about this yesterday when I was talking about how to find out which planet is the most important planet in your chart. What we discovered yesterday, or learned yesterday, is that when you have all of those planets in Aries, Mars is in the race for the most important planet in your chart because Mars is in control of those planets. Mars is the commanding officer of every planet in in Scorpio and Aries. What does that mean? That means that before you can Sun, before you can Mercury, before you can Venus, before you can Jupiter and Aries, you must Mars. All of those planets are in Mars's territory and they must follow Mars rules, right? Now we could go down the rabbit hole on that, but I'm gonna leave that there. So this is a conjunction. One, it's the beginning of a new story, a new phasal relation or synodic cycle between two planets. Two, they are in the same sign, which means those two planets are under the command, under the charge, must consider the agenda of the same planet, okay? Now, there's another whole thing about the nature of the planets involved in a conjunction, right? One of those planets is gonna be what they call the weightier body, meaning the one that is slower moving, right? One is going to be the lighter body, one that is quicker moving. So if there's a conjunction between Mercury and Jupiter, Mercury would be the lighter or slower moving body, and Jupiter would be the the weightier or slower moving body, right? So there's some things implied about that. Right, we're all about establishing hierarchy of influence and control and priorities in astrology. So the weightier body is really the top dog here. So if you have Sun and Mars conjunct in your chart, right, the Sun is the quicker moving body and Mars is the slower moving body. So in essence, what we're saying here is that if you have any two planets conjunct, the quicker moving planet is communicating, articulating, translating, or executing some story with regard to the quicker moving planet. Let's give an example. Let's say you have Mercury conjunct Jupiter. Let's go with the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction that we've just been dealing with, right? Jupiter is articulating to us a larger trend around how we interpret collectively and individually in our lives. How are we interpreting our experiences? How are we interpreting what we perceive, what we read, what we learn, what we know, what we feel? In Scorpio, we are interpreting everything through the lens of our survival instinct. Everything is real serious. Everything is life or death, right? Everything is going in one of two boxes. Does it support or undermine my life? Does it support my life, body, and well-being, or is it a threat? Does it undermine it? Right? Scorpio is black and white that way. That's what the survival instinct is for. The survival instinct is for, am I going to die or am I going to live? Is it going to hurt me or am I going to be okay? Right? So that's the larger Jupiter in Scorpio thing that we've been dealing with. And I'm using this as an example to talk about a conjunction. The conjunction. Just keep getting phone calls from random numbers. So Mercury then, because it is the quicker moving planet, is going to have a little powwow, or has had a little powwow with Jupiter and Scorpio in this conjunction. And Jupiter is getting, Mercury is getting some marching orders from Jupiter. Mercury in that conjunction is saying, okay, now what are we doing? What are we talking about? What's happening here? All right. And now Mercury is going to go be the talk show host and host some conversations. Literally, this happened. Literally, Jupiter and Scorpio is like, yeah, we're talking about threat perception. We're talking about trauma. We're talking about abuse. We are talking about the ways in which our body holds trauma. We are talking about the ways in which we interpret our bodily experiences and emotions in relationship to whether we are under threat or whether we are safe. And literally, Mercury came and conjoined Jupiter, got its marching orders, and now we get a 3-day, 5-episode documentary of women talking about what? Scorpio stuff, right? Trauma, threat, survival, life or death, all of those things, right? So this is how this stuff works. Now, in your natal chart, if you have a conjunction, you can do something really, really, really cool, right? Let's say you've got a conjunction between Mars and Saturn in your chart. That's a pretty common natal conjunction. If you've got a Mars-Saturn conjunction in your natal chart, what is implied is that Mars and Saturn are beginning a new cycle. So what you could technically do is you can go back in time to your conception, right? So if you were a full-term baby, you could go back 9-10 months and see where Mars and Saturn were. Were Mars and Saturn in a square then? Right? If they're in a conjunction in your birth chart, then that means that Mars likely could have been in a closing square with Saturn. So for example, I have Mars conjunct Saturn in Libra, so there's a strong possibility that at some point before I was born, right, during my gestation, Mars was in Cancer, square Saturn in Libra, right? What that's going to imply is something about the circumstances around your conception, something that was going on literally in your mother's life. And I'm not trying to be deep and symbolic, I'm meaning literal, right? I'm saying literally there was a Mars square Saturn thing happening in the life of your mother, the life of your father, right? Which likely had something to do with your conception, or depending on the signs, it could be somebody's job, or somebody's dealing with illness, or maybe there's a car accident, or someone's struggling to deal with their boss, or whatever it may be, right? So these are real things. My whole point in telling you this, talking to you about aspects and conjunctions this way, is for you to understand that no aspect, including a conjunction, stands alone. It is a part of a larger story. You hear me use that word a lot, but the fact of the matter is that our memory, right, the way our memory is structured is in story narrative form. As much as we would like to think that we've just got a file cabinet in our brain that we just thumb through when we need to access or recall information, our memory is very much rooted in a narrative form. And the things that we remember, barring some other thing that's going on with our minds, tend to be things that have the deepest emotional impact on us, right? How we remember it is going to be rooted in the emotional effect on us, whether it's positive or negative. So, you have more than one planet in one sign, you have a conjunction. And what is implied by that conjunction is a larger story, the beginning of a new story. And that probably sometime during your gestation, right? Probably sometime during the time that you were in your mother's womb, another part of that aspect story was occurring, right? Something was occurring in the life of your mother that directly impacted you and directly showed up in your chart in this way, right? So maybe I'll talk about the square tomorrow. There's two kinds of squares. Yeah, that's a long conversation. So I'll talk about that tomorrow. But for those of you who just tuned in, and I'm driving, trying not to be reckless here. I'm going to come to a stop soon. But for those of you who just tuned in, did you see this? Right? This is your 2019 Eclipse Guide, printed and spiral bound. I'm going to be packaging these up, and they will be shipped out. Today is Thursday, not Wednesday. Dang. Yeah, tomorrow, I'm gonna try to package them up tonight. My day is super duper busy, but more than likely what's gonna happen is that I am going to package these up Friday and print your shipping labels and take them to the post office. I'll probably be able to print shipping labels today if there's ink in my printer. But yeah, these are gonna go out tomorrow, so you should be getting them first thing next week. Aren't they so pretty? All of you who did not order the printed and bound version, you really missed out. Look at that. It's a nice cover. Yeah, so I'm gonna be shipping those out. I'll finish talking about aspects. Well, I'll talk about the square tomorrow, and depending on how long it takes me to do that, I might talk about the opposition too. And I'm gonna save this video this time because it was really good. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys have an amazing Thursday. I know this week has been really long, and we're ready for it to be over. But Moon in Pisces is going to spice some things up tomorrow because Mutable Madness is going to get super duper activated again. Oh yeah, that means I have to talk about trines too. I have some really interesting things to say about sextiles too, because sextiles are supposed to be like a supportive aspect, but I don't really know if that's true. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, and I'll explain why. I think it's more complicated than that for all of the signs. Like a square, I don't think squares are inherently bad, neither are oppositions. Squares are generally what save people in their charts from going way off the deep end. Yeah, so have a great Tuesday, you guys. It's not Tuesday, I'm drunk, y'all. Have a great Thursday. Yeah, see you later, people. Bye.